Hello, my sweet strangelings. Today we're going to be talking about Randonautica. So I recently did a live stream and I was so excited to share some stories with you guys. As some of you know who are either listening to this or have been on my live streams, I talk about all kinds of spooky stuff. And it was brought up, the conversation around Randonautica was brought up. So I was like, well, I think this would be a good podcast, especially for sharing stories that other people have experienced or what we have seen online. Oh gosh, there has been some interesting videos on TikTok. I'm sure some of you saw that or heard about some of the stuff that happened with Randonautica back in 2020, and we're going to get into it. So let's talk about what is Randonautica. For those of you that probably have not heard of it, now I'm going to be a little confused how you have not heard of it. But regardless, there are people that haven't heard of Randonautica still to this day, even though there was so much virality happening in 2020 regarding some of the things that happened.
Randonautic comes from an app called Randonautica that uses a quantum random number generator to give you a set of coordinates in your local area to explore.
So Randonautica is an app that sends users on random adventures by generating specific coordinates for them to visit. And it gained so much popularity as a tool to go out and adventure new locations and things of that nature. But it also had this very mysterious aura to it because the idea of how you would get to these places. So if you go to the Randonautica page and you go to the About Me section, this is what it says. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, Randonautica is a tool created to enhance the human experience with novelty by mindfully exploring the world, the interconnectivity of the universe, and to test the hypothesis that human consciousness can influence the distribution of random numbers through mind-matter interaction, which the acronyms is MMI. So developed by Global Movement, the Randonauts, and based on the theories stemming from the Phantom Project, the Randonautica app was created to encourage people to venture outside of their day-to-day routine by using a quantum random number generator to derive a truly random coordinate to their journey. The phenomenon has taken the world by storm, and there are millions of randonauts exploring their surroundings in nearly every country. So how do you use Randonautica? Well, if you go to randonautica.com/randonauting-101, you will find a couple of great information. It's pretty thorough, and I'm actually going to click into it so I can also read to you verbatim what it says so you don't have to. So when you download the app, there's going to be different types of GPS points you would like to generate, right? So they say that there are 3 different ones. Tractors. This is a dense cluster of random points within your set radius. Number 2 are voids that are clusters with improbably low density within your set radius. And number 3, choosing power will provide you with a point that is the highest power or the most anomalous of an attractor or void. There's also blind spots that are simply random points. So also, before you do this, you're going to have to set the intention or your theme for your trip in your mind while generating the point. And this is where, like, I have seen online, people generate some pretty tragic or scary results because their mind wasn't clear or they were really pushing themselves and challenging themselves for that adrenaline rush. Now, this is one of the many reasons why I haven't really tried Randonautica because I did not really leave the house, but also I dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression back then. So seeing like all these tragedies and scary stuff on the internet, I was like, I'm just not going to go out there, but cool for other people. And I watched the videos on TikTok. So in early 2020, Randonautica was co-founded by a guy named Joshua Langfelder, I believe is how you say his name. And on Instagram, it's literally his first and last name. In his bio, it says creator of the viral movement known as Randonauts, author, developer, and small business and nonprofit owner. So he developed the app with the idea of combining quantum random number generation with adventure, which makes sense, of course, like Randonautica, like we said, like I've been saying, is all about adventure and intention. Well, like we've been saying, like what has been said up until this point, it's all about adventure. So what has been the impact of Randonautica? So the cultural impact has been that, of course, it started in the early months of, it became pretty big during the pandemic, and people sought out new ways to experience the world while maintaining social distancing. However, it also garnered attention due to reports of users finding unsettling and eerie things at the generated locations, which added its allure and mystery. One of the most notable incidents that I mentioned earlier was that of June of 2020, where a group of teenagers were using Randonautica, I believe in Seattle, Washington, and they followed the coordinates that led them to a suitcase containing human remains.
Guys, we found a suitcase at the
The incident went viral on social media, and I remember, like, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't put it on here, but just kind of speaking here, I remember that I saw an article about how the remains were linked to a missing person. So that's really interesting and unfortunate. And okay, I misspoke. So I'm going to add in here what one of the victims' aunt was saying about this case, and I will link the video that you guys should watch on BBC to hear more about the stories of the family and the victim's family of this tragedy.
Jesse and Austin are going to be laid to rest soon. I think that video needs to be laid to rest too.
Because I lived in Colorado, I was getting a lot of like people using Randonautica out there. And one of the ones that really just like struck a chord and really concerned me was that of this username, McKenya Ray. And when I went on the Reddit thread, people are asking if this was real or if this was fake. And I'm going to plug in the video here.
I just went randonauting. Their intention was death.
So this is what the user said. They said, I came across it in some YouTube videos, and there are people who think it's fake. I hope I'm not being gullible. And there was only one article that I could find of this. But then there was another person that they were pointing out that she was in a very sketchy neighborhood in Colfax, Colorado, and that the guy didn't die. He was shot by a stranger but survived. His wife was in shock. He already had set the intention as death. Because if you're setting the intention a certain way, I feel like people should always be cautious in general, whether you're doing a Randonautica or anything. A lot of things should be set with intention, not just for adrenaline. Death and any of that exploitive stuff. And I think we just need to be a little bit more careful with intention, whether it's Randonautica or not. Now, I'm hoping to do more Randonautica episodes because eventually I would like to have other people share their stories on here, since so many people have had experiences with the app. I mean, I even had a friend who talked about how she set the intention of overcoming her fear, and she ended up in a garden of gnomes, which I could have her on here and we can discuss more about that. At least that's what I think she said. But again, I'd rather have her explain the story. All right, so I did get a person who wrote to me though about Randonautica, so I'm really, really grateful for this. Her name is Grace C. And I'm just going to leave the last name like that. Again, if you guys ever have any stories that you would like to share with me, feel free to write to me at shareyoursspookystory@gmail.com, or you can join my Discord. I want people to be more active on there so we can talk about spooky things and build that community together. So I will put that information in the description, but without further ado, let's get into the story aspect of this. Dear Stephanie Strange, I have followed you on TikTok for quite some time, and I just found out that you started your podcast. Congratulations. I am so thrilled to go over these. Now, I wanted to write to you about something that happened to me while using Randonautica. So I live in Michigan, and back in high school, I had a best friend who meant the world to me. Her name was Emily, and she was a kind person who could light up the room by just walking into it. She was always quirky and funny and just very bubbly. We were inseparable, and one of the things that always made her smile was armadillos. Like I said, she just had such a knack for being so quirky and out there, and I love that about her. So it might sound strange, no pun intended, but she had a quirky love for them, even though we're so far from anywhere they actually live. She used to joke about wanting to have one as a pet, and her room was filled with little armadillo trinkets and stuffed animals. But tragically, Emily passed away in a car accident when we were 16 years old. It was sudden, and it shattered my world. Over the years, I try to find peace, but losing someone so young and so sudden leaves a hole that never quite heals. And so what would have been on her birthday, I decided to use the Randonautica app. I heard about it from friends and thought it might sound interesting and maybe a distraction. So I set my intention as hope, specifically hoping for healing or just something that I could feel deeply for. So I try to push the thoughts away of Emily because I didn't want it to be about Emily, but I just wanted something to create hope without realizing like how silly that sounds. And of course, it being on her birthday. So anyway, focusing on the intention of hope and trying to block out Emily, the app led me to a random location, and honestly, I wasn't expecting much. But as I approached the spot, I couldn't believe what I saw on my way back to the vehicle. It was an armadillo right there in the middle of Michigan, where armadillos are not even native. It was just there, wandering along the side of the road. So seeing that armadillo in such an unexpected place shook me to my core. It felt like a sign from Emily, something that was meant to bring me comfort, but instead I was feeling overwhelmed and unsure what to make of it. But in the end, I realized that this made me hopeful for the afterlife, hopeful for reuniting with my loved ones. I asked myself, was it a coincidence or was it something more to it? But I truly believe it has everything to do with Emily. So, anyway, I think about her often and I even ask for universal signs if she's there. But I would love to hear your thoughts on what this might mean. I would love to hear it from a psychic medium. Do you think Emily might have been trying to communicate me through this experience? And, what is your recommendation for people to, find peace and hope? Thank you so much for reading this and for the incredible work you do. Your podcast has been such an exciting discovery, and I hope that you can help me understand the strange and powerful experience. Okay, well, first of all, Grace, you're very nice. Like, seriously, thank you so much for writing to me. And, the fact that you've been following me on TikTok, that makes me incredibly happy. So I just feel like in general, the first thing that really struck to me was the symbolism and the potential of the idea of the armadillo and what it could mean for those who are into spirituality, especially with symbology with animals. And the fact that you said that there was an armadillo in Michigan out of all places is a little strange. Like, part of my mind is like, well, did someone own a pet armadillo? Did it escape? Like, how did it end up out there? But, when I think about armadillos, my understanding was that they stand for resilience and grounding and protection. In a lot of native cultures, they're believed to ward off spirits and stand for protection. But also in like Latino and Mexican culture, they can stand for strength as well. And so when you said hope, I almost draw to that as well, like strength and resilience. But I also think of like native cultures and now it could stand for protection and warding off things. Also, the fact that it was on what would have been, and the fact that it was on your friend's birthday, I always say I don't believe in coincidences. I just don't. I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I think that, you were in a place where you really were trying to block her out and you were really trying to fuel something. And I'll be honest and vulnerable here. When I was in high school, and I really feel for you because that struck a chord with me in my experience in high school. I had a friend that passed away due to a tragic accident too. And honestly, you guys, I don't know whether this is probably not the healthiest thing. I would call her phone just to hear her voice because it would go to her voicemail. And she had set up a recording with her voice in it. And I would just listen to it nonstop because I was so scared of forgetting her voice. And she was considered one of my really, really good best friends. And to just have that experience, I just couldn't let go. And in the end, it made me feel like it kind of amplified and cemented this idea of like, I don't believe in the afterlife. I'm skeptical of a lot of things. And later on in life, I would have a reading from a medium who explained her to the T, talked about her hair. Until this day, I haven't met a medium that was able to pick up on her so well. It's actually a struggle for people to figure out who she is or anything about her. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. And oh my God, my heart goes out to you for that loss. But it's interesting that all of this happened on her birthday. I do think that she is letting you know that she is watching over you. And like I was saying earlier, to kind of regurgitate what I was saying earlier, armadillos represent so many layers of emotion, so many different layers of meanings, depending on what culture you're looking at and what resonates. But I also feel like your friend could also be encouraging you to let down your walls and embrace healing. I think that's what she would have wanted for you. And what most of these spirits want for us in this plane is to heal, right? Like any source of love and high frequency is going to want you to heal and find, the hope that you're looking for, the healing and peace that you're looking for. Healing and all of that is not forgetting, right? It's just knowing that it happened. It's unfortunate, but also taking the time to embrace the moments that you did have with her and remembering like life there's so much, life is short, right? And in this case, like, oh my God, it was very tragically short for your friend. When I lost my friend, I realized, like, wow, I need to make the most with people, the people that are in my life, the people that show up for me. But unfortunately, that was the biggest reminder. And I don't know what it's been like for your journey. It's embracing those memories and that she will live through your memories, through you holding a place for her in your heart. I've been trying to do more and embrace more of my culture for like my version since I'm Central American. Because I know like Mexicans have their Day of the Dead, so I'm Salvadorian. I try to do like the Saints Day stuff and trying to remember the people that have passed on. And I really encourage whatever culture you are, whatever, I don't know what your ethnicity is or anything like that, but finding a way that you can appropriately and feel comfortable to honor those that have been in your life, whether it's having photos and setting up a space for that. You know, I do encourage that. I encourage a lot of people to honor those people and not block it out. So I hope this helps. And I really, really appreciate you writing to me. But if you guys want me to do another part of Randonautica, I'm happy to do that as well. I hope that you found this episode very interesting and the story very moving and thought-provoking as I did when I was reading it. It really makes me curious about Randonautica even more. I know that like some people have had concerns of Randonautica and whether there might be some type of tracking with it, but I would like to do that at a different episode because just alone that story was very much packed with a lot of emotions for me and also emotions for the individual who wrote to me. I really am giving you a hug right now. This is such a great reminder that the spirit world is always around us. Energy is always around us. Whether it's offering signs or messages, we as individuals our energy as well, and we are receptive to it more than we think we know or more than we think we can. I always tell people that in person, like when they say I'm not intuitive or I don't know. Yes, we all have different ways in how we receive energy. And I think for Grace, I think this was a great way for you to maybe look into that more too. Like, how do you receive signs from the universe? Maybe it doesn't have to be with just Randonautica. Maybe it's your friend letting you know, like, hey, I am always here. And so in general, we need to set the intention for everything we do, right? Like I was saying earlier, Randonautica, there are people who wanted to set the intention of scary stuff. And I don't agree. I don't think people should do a lot of things with fear. I think I do spooky stuff on my channel for that reason, to embrace fear and morph it into something that can like help us overcome things and alleviate us from our stress and anxiety, or to indirectly through a very much fictitious way through storytelling. Like, you know, scary movies are fictitious, right? They're not real, but they're a way to like abstractly and metaphorically explain the fears of society. So I feel like in general, like we shouldn't lead life through fear and being scared of everything. We should learn to empower ourselves. And I think with Randonautica, like, I think there's so much more cool intentions and you can still feel something. It doesn't have to be with fear. There are some that I saw. If I can find them, I will do it in a part 2. So if you wanted me to do a part 2, please let me know. But there were a few people that I saw on TikTok that were like manifesting colors, and they would end up in a place with like overwhelming things of that color, and they would change the colors and it would happen. It's like the coolest thing ever. So you can experience Randonautica without the intention of death or fear or something scary. You can actually set the intentions in other ways. Anyway, I know I rambled a little bit here, but if you have your own experience that you would like to share with me, feel free to reach out to me. You never know, your story might make it on this podcast, and I would love to give you some advice or talk about it or make commentary, whatever you want me to do. Let me know. Just write that in there when you email me. But until next time, everybody, keep your heart open, your spirit grounded, and stay strange.